Working Your Football World podcast. In this episode, I speak to Conor Doyle, who tells us all about living and working in Dubai. Conor, thank you very much for coming on. It's a real pleasure to see you again after seeing you a few weeks ago in Dubai. How are you doing?
Very well. Yeah, thanks for having me. Just back from a few sessions, so a little bit hot, but glad to be on and discuss all things coaching.
That video came out really well, and mostly due to how great your answers were to those questions. And I'm stood there like a knob asking you really silly things, and you gave some great insight, and I think it's going to be very, very helpful for other people. So now with this podcast episode, I'd like to expand on all of that, because Dubai is a very, very popular location for coaches to want to work in. It's very, very sought after. Dubai, Spain, USA and Australia tend to be some of the ones that people most likely want to go. So as someone that's been there for 5 years, that has a lot of coaching experience, let's dive on into it. Let's start off by going to your coaching journey. How did you get into coaching?
I'd say I'm fairly late to coaching. Having, in my early 30s now, but I've pretty much been playing and still continue to play to a fairly decent level. Most of it amateur, but I fell into coaching really through being in Dubai on holiday. Visiting my partner's family on it was her uncle's 50th birthday. Came to Dubai on holiday, not knowing much about Dubai as a place, and certainly not knowing much about the football academy structure, and really even interested in coaching. I just graduated from America. I was on scholarship playing soccer at a university in America, and just graduated, was moving back to the UK, was trialing with different places, and really had plans to sort of try and step up the opportunity at 22, 23, 24 to play in the UK, and look to step into in the professional game in some aspect of still playing. But while I was here, I met the directors of the company I now work with, as my partner's cousins were members of the academy, which is Elite Sports Academy. And just through keeping in touch with them, touching base with them, there was a job opportunity which came across, and they said if I was ready to start the following, I think we were there in December, January, if I was ready to start in August, that there would be a job opportunity for me, really without touching on qualifications or what I had coaching wise, because I was very, very inexperienced at that point, having always concentrated on playing rather than the coaching side.
What university were you at in the US?
So I went to a Division II college called American International College. There was sort of my group of friends all went out together. So I'm from the Isle of Man originally. Now 4 or 5 of my close friends all played. Again, fairly decent amateur level in the Isle of Man, but also with trials back and forth to the UK, and we all got Division 1 and Division 2 scholarships going through First Point USA, who was our agency that we went through, and probably one of the most recognisable ones in the UK to getting student athletes out to America. So I went to Massachusetts to AIC for a 4-year full scholarship, which was really the biggest attraction to get out there, knowing that it was covered for 4 years. So I D2 and really enjoyed that experience of playing out there, training every day, alongside the education and getting the degree.
You feel that gave you a good base to start coaching a little later?
Yeah, so part of one of my sports marketing, sports management courses was to get an internship. So I got an internship with the assistant of my college team was also head coach and academy director for one of the local academies and professional sides. So I went and did some just as a sort of an assistant coach, and just to get some experience, did my internship with the professional team. It's called the Western Mass Pioneers, which play in the USL, which is the league below the MLS. It's like a separate, there's no promotion and relegation into it, but it's a separate professional league in America. So they had their professional team and they had their youth academy set up that I just went in and just delivered sessions and really got stuck into sort of learning about all things youth football and sort of the coaching side. Really, before that, I'd not really been interested in coaching or thought about it. It was always just playing and playing and playing, and really not giving a thought to the coaching side of things.
I'd like you to take a moment to have a think about how you might sell Dubai to someone else. Now, it was sold on us straight away. Wife and I have gone there, and the heat, the cleanliness, the organisation, the amount of entertainment. I mean, I live by the coast. I 5-minute drive from the sea, and we have a Five Guys nearby as well. And yet there's something very, very different about going to the beach and getting a Five Guys in Dubai. And we loved it. We've already looked at apartments and ways to move over there. It just really struck a chord with us immediately. But I'd like you to tell us, what did it for you, and what do you think are some of the key selling points of Dubai to people that may consider it as a location to move to for coaching and for life, really?
Yeah, I think from the 2-week holiday that I spent, and then obviously then choosing that to be the place we would sort of move to and call home for the last 5 years, really was the sort of the grandeur and the sort of the opportunities that lie here. We really taken back by, whether it's the Burj Khalifa or it's just, traveling around the marina or downtown and just seeing the sort of, not necessarily the luxury of the place, but also just the sort of the hospitality side and the friendliness, the mix of cultures and the diversity of Dubai really does sort of hit you when you get there. And I think that's one thing that I've particularly enjoyed about working here and living here is that mix of nationalities, of religions, of cultures, and how well everyone gets on. I don't think it's sort of is forced or it's false. I think it's very sort of unique in that sense as a city, that there really is a sense of community and pride about living in Dubai as an expat, or whether it's you're from, Sri Lanka or Pakistan or Bangladesh, or you're local, or you're from the UAE. There seems to be a real good mix of that. And that for me is one of the biggest selling points and biggest pluses to being here is that mix of cultures and nationalities and how well everyone seems to get on.
Definitely was very cosmopolitan, and that was fantastic for many reasons, because it's got great appeal. So it seems like pretty much anyone from anywhere in the world would have felt like there was part of home there for them. But at the same time, although you might be proud of who you are and where you came from, most of the people there seemed like they had integrated really well with each other. So they were contributing to the UAE while also still retaining who they were and where they were from. And it's quite hard to do, but it was very, very impressive how it worked there. And just the food, the amount of options. I mean, of course, yeah, I had cheeseburgers and ice cream every day, which I can do here. But it just seemed like everyone would have found something, not just the one thing, but kind of like Orlando in Florida or New York, just so much there to appeal to lots of different people that anyone could have fun there.
Yeah, no, it's a place that really accommodates everyone's needs and wants and desires. Just going from, you can go to the mall in the Mall of the Emirates, you can ski in the biggest indoor real snow ski slope, to then 5 minutes drive be on the beach, to then 10 minutes away, be on the biggest the new Alain viewing wheel that's opening this next week. The opportunities are endless, really, from what you can do and what you can achieve. And as you mentioned, the food, myself and my partner are big foodies. To have the opportunities and the restaurants available to you, make the social side of Dubai very strong in that sense, with the bars and the restaurants and the beach clubs and pool days available to you, with the weather as well. It really is. It does make it. I can see why the attraction to come out here and not only coach but also live here with your family really makes it an attractive place.
I would go back simply for this Persian kebab that I had. I haven't stopped talking about it since. So I think that really surprised me was I know from being in other parts of Asia and around the world how a lot of your favorite restaurant chains, you can find them all over the place. But
Yeah.
thinking from the point of view of British coaches, it was quite pleasing to see there were a few Nando's over there. So I know that people are worried about leaving home and going to a different country, being out of their comfort zone. Oh, don't worry, Dubai at least has Nando's. So on that, you have been there for 5 years and you had to originally adapt, and you have also seen lots of people over the years adapt to Dubai. What are some of the hardest things for people to get over? What are some of been the misconceptions that were totally wrong? For instance,
Yeah.
from what you read online, it seemed like it was a lot more strict in regards to how women dress. And our first day out, we asked the woman at reception at the hotel, and she laughed at us and said, "No, we don't do that here." And, oh, okay, fair enough. Great. So, what have you seen that takes some adapting to, and what have been some misconceptions that are just not true?
Yeah, I think the season starting pretty much middle of the summer in August and September to start with, for anyone who is moving out at the start of a new season or a new term, the weather is certainly the biggest factor. I think I mentioned it in the questions when we last spoke when you were here, is that the weather really can be tough. Most sessions are outdoor. The start of the season, we don't really move indoor until later on into the year when we get closer to the June, July. So getting used to the weather to start with would be one of the biggest factors. Plenty of misconceptions, as you mentioned. It's becoming a lot more westernized and Americanized in terms of that sense. When I said about being multicultural and multi-diverse, the dress code is really as you please. That has its limitations in certain public areas, but it's become a very hot spot for fashion and in that sense, and really you can wear what you want and do as you want to a certain extent. No different from any big city, London, New York, Paris, Rome. It is multicultural and very diverse in that sense. But I think another, especially for the British coaches and people looking to come here, there's plenty to do in terms of socially, whether it's the pubs, whether it's the bars, whether it's the nightclubs. There is a big social scene in that sense, which I think sometimes is misconceived, and people think that you can't maybe drink alcohol, or it's not very accessible. Now it's going to cost you a little bit, but and more so than anywhere else in the world, it's going to cost more. But it's certainly accessible and completely legal to be drinking on the beach or at the pool, where these private places and hotels have that available.
I'm a non-drinker, and I've never had a drop of alcohol in my life, so it's weird.
It may not attract you then.
Well, it's weird for me to consider that somewhere as amazing and as interesting as Dubai, you would still need alcohol to enhance the enjoyment of it, because it's so much fun out there. But what have you seen that people have struggled with apart from the weather? Anything else, or has it been relatively easy? Because we feel like we could move there tomorrow. It felt that good.
Yeah, I think it's quite tough working wise in terms of the workload. And we touched on it a little bit just before coming on, that there's a sort of misconception that people earn very well here, which that people do, and generally in each profession, people do earn well, and it's a good lifestyle, and you can make a good living for yourself here. But there are long working days, and the workload can be tough at times, whether that's 6-day working weeks, whether that's working weekends, whether that's for coaches working long hours at youth tournaments on weekends, working on your days off. Heavy loads is in terms of being in the office and admin hours in preparation for your sessions. It's not just a case of coming out here to coach football and you spend a couple of hours on the coaching pitch and then go home and you do the same the next day. There can be a heavy working load, but I think if you're prepared to do that and prepared to get stuck in, then you are made and you'll last here. There's been certainly a lot of good coaches that I've came into contact with through my company and through others that maybe haven't had that mentality or been prepared to sort of, or been in an environment beforehand to work as hard as maybe you need to do here. But if you're prepared to, then you'll reap the rewards that lie here, because it can be very rewarding too.
So we'll talk about your role in just a moment, because I want to go into that, particularly what the job entails, so that people don't think it's just a bit of a jolly, because I do know that is the idea a lot of people have, particularly if their experience of working abroad is summer camps in the US, where you get to act like a clown for a week and get paid. But there's a lot more work than just that. And anyone who has to run a team or an organization, we're fully aware of the unseen hours that go on largely behind the scenes, where you have to put in a lot of unglamorous work, and that the session itself is a fraction of what goes on, and that's the fun bit. But the work we have to do to get that right. Let's talk about, we'll talk about our cultural differences in terms of football, but cultural differences in terms of society. I found Dubai, now I can't speak for the other Emirates, but I found Dubai to be very progressive, perhaps even more progressive than some countries in the West that we claim to be certain things, and we cast aspersions about some Middle Eastern countries which probably don't apply, and are, I think currently, in the last few years certainly, you could make those same accusations about ourselves and we would not come out looking very good in a lot of that criteria. And the public transport, I think, was better than many places you would find in the West. So in what ways are we different culturally, socially to over there?
Yeah, I think Dubai, one thing when I touched on the sort of the benefits and what's great about Dubai, I think it's very clean. It's a very clean city. It makes sure it keeps that cleanliness very well. And I think it's very accessible, like you mentioned, with the public transport, whether that's having petrol's cheap for one here. So driving here is very accessible. Taxis are very cheap as well, but also the public transportation, as you mentioned, is only getting better and better with the metro line. It runs pretty much all the way from downtown at the top of the city all the way down to Jebel Ali and towards Abu Dhabi as well, and that's only growing in coming further out with the Expo starting in the past week. Expo 2020, that's kicked off this last week. Metro now is expanded towards out towards there and out towards other regions of Dubai that it hasn't before, which makes the city more and more accessible, which I think is one part of why it's so great, that you can really reach anywhere. Although it's a very cosmopolitan big city and it's got millions of people living in it, you can pretty much get anywhere within the city in 15-20 minutes. And traffic generally is very fast moving and smooth. There's not really many journeys that take you past 20 minutes, 25 minutes. That's from top of the city down to the furthest point away. It makes life and traveling between sessions and that much bit easier.
That just reminded me of the road system is brilliant. So 5-lane highways, the traffic, I think we were waiting once at a red light in the taxi and the guy apologized and said, "There's a bit of traffic tonight." And, mate, we've spent years in Mexico City. This is not traffic. And traffic is being stuck in the same spot for 3 hours without being able to come off, because it's the same in the other direction.
That doesn't usually happen. Now, driving is a different matter. Driving in Dubai is slightly more challenging. Again, that comes down probably to the mix of cultures and the amount of different sort of ways people drive. You've got a lot of people from a lot of Indians where they're slightly less patient and a little bit more aggressive than particularly drivers in the UK are very sort of polite and will give way to each other and will say thank you, and that doesn't really happen. So there's a mix of that. Culture has its downside, which is generally, I would say, is on the roads where driving is pretty much a fight to be the fittest and fight to be first, really, because you're crossing lanes and it can be dangerous at times. You know, driving, particularly when you're first. We mentioned earlier about settling in. Driving on the roads can be tough to begin with while you settle in, especially with coaches when you're going from 2 or 3 venues each day, and you know you've got back-to-back sessions and you've got to be somewhere pretty quickly from one session to another. Getting from that venue to another in a short period of time can be quite challenging up front. And you know, obviously with use of Waze and different Google Maps and stuff makes it easier. But yeah, driving would be one of the tougher things to get used to, I would say.
I did see some less than courteous driving at times. The road system itself, nonetheless, was very impressive. The amount of slip roads and overpasses that meant that you rarely had to stop on your journey when you're getting somewhere. So it's very, very well planned. The city as a whole, because it was new, it just looked like they had learned from the mistakes of so many other cities over the years that it's going to be leading the way for generations to come. It was impressive. And I keep telling people here, it's like Disney World, just without the Mickey Mouse branding, where every part of the city has been designed specifically so that, well, it's got ease of access and everything is pretty from all angles. So that was one of the key things at Disney, is that wherever you are is photogenic. Wherever you are turns out for a good picture. So there's no bad side when you're looking at the buildings and the architecture. There's no dark alleyways. Everything is pretty. So that is impressive, but it just comes from just fantastic planning. Clearly, they've got a lot of very bright people involved who have built something that can last a long time.
Yeah, it's very effective. It has been planned very effectively. I think the expo happening in the next 6 months, it only sort of, you know, highlights that. And I think they've got plans in place for the next 50 years. Obviously, it turns 50 in December, so it's still very, very young as a city and as a country. So I only think I can only see it growing and becoming a world leader in a lot of aspects of how it, you know, with how it dealt with the COVID situation. It really led and sort of dealt with that head on and in a really productive way. And I can only see that happening in other things, really, as it moves forward.
So let's now try and stick to football. And let's start with your role. What do you do? Who do you work for? And what does your typical week look like?
Yeah, so I work for Elite Sports Academy. We are probably one of the biggest sports academies in Dubai. Now, we are a sports academy. We don't just focus solely on football. Now, football is our main part of the academy, but we also have a swimming academy. We also do facility rentals, and we also do a camps program in school holidays. Now, there's a camp week next week for half term. There's a winter camp. There is a February half term. There is a Easter 2-week break, and there is a summer 7 to 8 week, depending on the school holidays that we have our multi-sport and football camp programs running. So there's a lot of different facets to the academy, but football is our passion and is our biggest side of the academy. We have roughly up to our peak period in the year, up to 1,500 players playing with us weekly. And through the football academy, we have our squads, again, split into advanced and development and different levels of squads within those age groups. And then we have our recreational academy program, which is anything from ECA programs after schools, or our community sessions at community venues or schools as well on the weekends. Very, very busy. We've really reacted from the COVID situation very well to start this year in a very healthy position, really. My role within the academy is the football technical manager. So I oversee everything from the delivery, the session planning, the curriculum, assessments, player assessments, coach assessments, the pathway we have of progression from players moving through the age groups and through the development periods, to league entries, to our partnership with West Ham, who we have a partnership with the West Ham Foundation, to trips abroad, So it covers a vast area of our football squads, working alongside our academy manager and our business development and academies program manager. So really enjoying it. Like I said, I've been here 5 years with the company. I moved here for the role as just a head coach with the company, and I've progressed through to a senior coordinator, to an area manager, and now to the football technical manager. And really enjoying it, really. Like I said, I hadn't had much coaching experience before coming out here. Like it was most from a playing background, but I've managed to still play to a fairly competitive level over here whilst coaching, which we can touch on a little bit in terms of the expansion of expats being allowed to play in the professional leagues here is growing, which I've been able to do. But yeah, really enjoying it and having a good time while we're here too.
What kind of things are you getting up to on a day-to-day basis as part of the job?
Yeah, so we, as we touched on a little bit earlier as well, it's a busy schedule, but I also wouldn't have it any other way. I think we generally do 9-hour days. Our schedule is Sunday. Obviously, the working week here starts on a Sunday, with the fifth day, the end day of the week, being a Thursday, and then the weekend being Friday and Saturday. Now, I'm sure a lot of the coaches listening to this will know that coaches don't stop at Thursday. They carry on. A weekend is a busy period for coaches, and it's the same here, whether that's weekend sessions or it's league fixtures or it's tournaments. Our weekends are very busy too. So we typically have a 6-day working week, with a 5-day week from Sunday to Thursday taking the bulk of the hours, and then the odd session or league fixtures on a Friday or a Saturday, with generally the Friday being a day off and you work Saturday, or a Friday being a working day and you have a Saturday off. So it changes depending on the schedule. We have about 12 full-time, currently 12 full-time coaches, including myself, working for the academy. And then as well as swimming coaches, and then our admin team of 6 or 7 who support the coordinators and the coaching team, and then our accounts team who deal with the payments and that side of things. So yeah, really enjoy it, and I think the working weeks are busy, but as I said, dealing with a lot of admin and planning in the mornings, and then out to sessions from anywhere from 1 to 3 o'clock. And then, like, for example, my day started at 10:45 today, and I finished delivering back-to-back sessions, 3 sessions today, from 4:45 till 7:45 this evening. So nice and busy, but again, I think if you're prepared to work hard and get stuck in, which I was fortunate to do when I first arrived here. I only arrived here on part-time hours. I'd sort of delayed it a little bit too long, that the full-time role I was originally offered was given to another coach. I had the opportunity to go with Blackpool when they were in League One for a month on trial with the first team. So I had 2 one-month trials with them. So that delayed coming out here. So I lost the full-time role that I originally had been offered. So then came out here part-time, had part-time hours, worked hard, and just got stuck into the role really as a then head coach. And then through a few people moving around and hours becoming more permanent, my full-time role started only a month after, and I've been with the company full-time now for 5 years.
So when you were part-time, did you do anything to supplement your hours?
No, and I didn't really have a chance to. I was part-time, but I was pretty much full on with the company as part-time, although I wasn't, confirmed to a visa. Which with becoming full-time, you obviously sign a 2-year contract, which includes your visa, health insurance, and other benefits which come along with that. But I was here obviously with on a tourist visa, which means you've got to do border runs, or you've got to leave the country and come back in, which at the time was completely convenient, and it was very easy to do, and I believe still is. But part-time hours were pretty much quite busy, 2 or 3, 4 sessions a day, before becoming a full-time employee and getting the 2-year visa, the health insurance, and other things that come with becoming a full-time employee here.
I can think of a few people listening, including myself, that will be familiar with those border runs. Now, what's the visa process like? Is it dependent upon an employer? Are they like a sponsor, or can your visa allow you to work for whichever company you like?
It's all based on your employer. And again, that's talking pretty much from my experience firsthand, and also with how the business does it, and from other friends and my partners' companies. Your employer pretty much sponsors your visa and takes on the responsibility of that. And that's, I think, really why you sign your 2-year contract, which keeps you, it stops, which can be and has in the past happened, where it can be difficult settling to a new country and settling in Dubai. So sometimes there are cases where people come for 1 or 2 months and struggle, and it's not for them, and then they're off back to the UK, and then leaves the company with a bill of a visa bill, and they've paid X amount of dirhams for this person's visa, for them to then not last past 2 months and still have to make the payment. That's the reason for the 2-year contract, is to give it, I think, a little bit of security to the employer, but also as well know that the employee is there for 2 years and is going to be working with the company and committed to the company for that period.
Very similar to the US. It changes from country to country, but it's always interesting to know. So, for instance, in the US, you are tied to your employer. You can't work for anyone other than them. And as soon as they cancel your employment, you have to leave the country. Whereas in Canada, if you were younger than 30, you could get a year-long work visa and work wherever you wanted. And I think Australia does something similar, those year-long work visas. So really very important to know what we're up against. What does the visa entail? You mentioned health insurance. Does that come from the company?
Yes. So that's part of the benefits and such as what you receive is from signing your contract and 2-year visa. You obviously have a 2-year visa, which keeps you you get that put in your passport, and also that includes then health insurance that the employer is legally binded to give to their employees. So that could cover from it has a scale. There's a scale of insurances that I imagine employers can offer. Some will offer the bare minimum. Some will go out and give really good insurance. So it depends on each company in terms of what they provide. But obviously, it provides, if it's a basic of just health insurance, medical covers, or if it's MRIs, if it's surgery for different stuff, if it's just a basic a consultation with a doctor, there will be a sort of a scale of what packages includes, and insurance covers you for certain hospitals. So you'll also need to check upon getting that where you're insured to go. A lot of times, I've known some horror stories. I've known some good stories where people have gone to the wrong place and they've not been insured, and they've been left with X amount of thousands on a bill. So it is important you check where you're going. Are you insured to go there? What are you insured for? There's been cases of people having serious injuries from playing football, and they're getting ambulance to hospital and getting there and realizing they're not insured for that place, and needing to go then from that place to another hospital because that's where they're insured. So it can be a little bit tricky. It's not as plain sailing as it is in the UK of the health system in there. So it's important where you're insured for, how to check for the insurance of where you are insured for, how much you're insured for, what you're covered for before hopefully, touch wood, not having to really use it, but it also has a little bit of security that you are covered for certain treatments and certain stuff.
I've heard a few of those stories and been through a few myself. So what are the football cultural differences? So when I was there, you mentioned that for many of the kids, it's not the be all and end all like it might be in some football crazy countries. Now, I can't imagine growing up and not having football as my number one priority. I actually can't imagine that as an adult either. But I have seen it from kids in other parts of the world where you ask them if they saw the game, they say who played, and you mention 2 famous teams. They go, who are they? What? Yeah. How dare you? So what's the attitude the appetite for football like in Dubai, and what's the differences between kids there and kids back here at home?
Yeah, I think I completely relate to what you just mentioned there about the children not knowing, your Messi, Ronaldo, your Pogbas. Most will know them, But in terms of games, now sometimes the games are that late here, and we're obviously with the time difference, we're not getting games until with the clocks are changing soon. We'll be 4 hours behind the UK, so your Champions League games will be coming sort of way past midnight. So it can be difficult to keep in touch, even as an adult, to keep in touch and stay up to date with scores and who's playing and when they're playing. But the interest level I find sometimes is a little bit underwhelming, should I say, from our players in terms of, are they going home? Are they watching? Are they yes, playing video games has a negative, but I also think it can have such a positive from kids picking up stuff on FIFA, whether it's from how to play, from players' names, from teams, from formations, from picking up skills. That doesn't necessarily happen here because of the lifestyle where a children's schedule. I was just listening to a local radio station yesterday where they were debating, is a child schedule too full on in Dubai? Because a lot of schedules for children, whether it's once they're finishing school at 3 o'clock till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, their whole schedule, whole evening, afternoon is booked in, whether that's going to gymnastics, swimming, tennis, rugby, football, basketball, whether it's their tutoring, whether it's their language learning. There really is an endless supply of activities and activities that they can do here that makes it very challenging. As for us as a football coach and myself, like you said, my only passion really, apart from when I was younger, other sports has been and always will be football. So then trying to relay that to our players at times can be very difficult when they, like you say, who's the manager of Liverpool? And they won't even have a clue who Jurgen Klopp is, or who Pep Guardiola is, who Jose Mourinho is. Where do Man United play? They won't know the stadiums. They won't know. They know 3 or 4 players. We had it when we went on our most recent trip to the UK, to Manchester. And our players are going into Old Trafford on a stadium tour, buying a Man United top. We then go the next day to the Etihad, and they're wearing a Man United top, and then they go and buy a Manchester City jumper and put it over that Man United top. So and that's the stuff with and I don't know if it's necessarily just here. I think that is starting to happen in other countries where there's not, especially the non-league and lower league clubs, they're struggling to get support and especially from the younger generation, because access to games is so much now on TV and from the video games and YouTube clips, is that all they want to do is they see it as winning. They see a 2-minute highlight video where it's pretty much just goals. They don't see players giving the ball away. They don't see players having to work back, and they don't see that side of the game. It's all, which is great, of the goals, the highlights, the tricks, the skills. But there's also a different side, which I don't necessarily know if children are having that contact time and understanding, which especially why we struggle with that at times.
Boring 99% of the game you play without the ball at your feet, where having watched highlights, you just stand here and someone gives you the ball and you score, right? That's kind of how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Similar in the US, you get kids turn up with a Barcelona shirt and Real Madrid shorts, and in Q8 the kids would regularly tell you who their favourite team was, and they'd list 5, and 3 of them would play in the same league. I like Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea, Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich.
Yeah, no, we absolutely have the same thing here. And again, I think it's that coming back to, you mentioned cultural differences, especially I can't really touch on what the UK coaching in the UK says. I've not done it, but from when I was obviously growing up, there was a real desire just to win, and a desire to you just played football every single minute of the day, whether it's in school and scuffing your school shoes at lunch, whether you're playing Wembley or you're playing Wembley doubles, or whether it's going at home and just going out in the street and playing Kirby or playing games in the park. There isn't that culture here. And I think that's, whether that's families having the time where they'd rather spend their weekends going to luxury hotels and spending time at the beach pools and pool days, or traveling is very much accessible here. We're just competing with a lot of external factors, which makes football less of an influence here. And I don't necessarily think it's the children's fault. I think if there was that culture here, that they would. Certainly from our advanced squads and our squad players, that would be their chosen. They would love to play football every day, I'm sure. And I just don't think the accessibility is there to allow that. And I also don't think you know, it's very competitive and it's a business here, that I think having your volunteer sessions and your you know, you don't really have to pay much to play football in the UK. If you went to any park, there would be a group of kids, or there would be a group of adults, or there would be a group of people who would be playing football in some aspect, whether that's just by keeping the ball up, by doing two-touch, or by playing Wembley, or by playing an organised small game. That doesn't happen here, and I don't know if it's necessarily the players and the children's fault. I think it's just the lifestyle and the culture here that doesn't allow that, and also the weather sometimes too.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this in a lot of different cultures now, where people are more concerned with reputation rather than character. So I want to be associated with a winning team because I view myself as a winner. I want other people to see me as a winner. I might not put the work in, but I definitely want that reputation. And one of the most offensive questions that I get frequently from kids around the world is, who's your favourite team, coach? Blackburn Rovers. Oh, who's your favourite Premier League team? And I'm not an advocate for hitting children, but I definitely consider it when I hear that kind of question. What's the football landscape like within the UAE, going from professional to grassroots?
Yeah, no. So one of the biggest things that has changed in my 5 years here is the sort of collaboration, or the pathway from now the UAE professional clubs and the grassroots private and professional academies is starting to get much closer than ever has done before. When I first moved out here, there was just no relationship between a company like Elite, who I'm working for, to an Al Wasl or an Al Ain or an Al Nasser, who is a professional club and academy here. They were two different worlds 5 years ago. Now they are starting slowly to work together and to become more streamlined in the sense that there's now regular fixtures with these academies where they're open to allow private academies to come into their facilities and to play against their programs. Now, also the programs are now allowing expat youngsters and expat families to now play for their programs and side. Now, that never used to be a thing. It used to be predominantly only available for local or Arabic players, mostly because obviously with the language of having Arabic and local Emirati coaches, it would be very difficult for a Western or an expat football to go into that and sort of, you know, fit in well. So I think that's changed dramatically over the last 5 years of allowing and competing against and with each other, instead of sort of being seen as separate entities. There has been a slow transition into working together and starting to allow the talented expat footballers into the professional side of things, into professional game in their teams. And I think that's also helped in sense of it's helped in the senior football. Now, myself, from my experience, I played the last 2 years in the UAE division, in the UAE professional leagues. Now there's 3 leagues in the UAE professionally, where it's the Pro League, which has your Al Wasls, your Al Ains, Al Nassers, where you have the likes of Johan Cabai, Alvaro Negredo, and those players playing within their league structure, where you have a Division 1 and you have a Division 2. Now, the last 2 years, an expat academy side set up a first team where they went out and pretty much sourced out the best amateur league football players who play in the Dubai Amateur Football League to play and represent them in the UAE Division 2. Now we won the Division 2 last season and got promoted into Division 1, which has never happened before. And that's gone from having 16 British players in the squad to then having to deal with a lot of restrictions and rules, where this year they're only allowed 2 foreigners and 2 residents in their squad. The other 14 players have to be local. So now that's meant the whole structure of their program and their team has had to be completely different, in the sense of it's gone from 16 pretty much British players to now only having 2 in their match day squad, and now all those players have now filtered back into the Amateur Football League, but there are slowly starting to have different rule changes and allow expat footballers to be playing in the local professional leagues, which has never really happened before until a couple of years ago.
What's the guidance, the input like from the FA in the Emirates? Is there is there much structure? Is there much? I think like years ago here, the FA came up with a future game, revamped the coaching licenses, and
Yeah.
have really tried to turn things around and come up with lots of initiatives. What's it like over there?
It's getting better. Now the UAFA are the overall governing body. As a private academy, we mostly deal with the Dubai Sports Council. They would be the governing body that we mostly relate to and deal with in terms of our league structures, our sessions. You know, they were very hot in terms of the COVID protocols when we recommenced sessions, making sure that all the information and all the practices were put in place were followed to. Not really the UAFA. Now, the UAFA have academy leagues where certain academies can go and compete. Now, in that sense, then we would have more contact time with them. But it's really the Dubai Sports Council as a business and private academy. That's who we're governed by in terms of making sure that the visas are correct, that all the sort of the legal stuff that we need to do is mostly followed up by them rather than the UAFA. But I do think there are big steps and certain roles having been created in the last few years where they're really trying to increase participation and increase the sort of the collaborative work between the local side of the game and the expat side of the game, because there's a lot of experience and well qualified expat coaches and academy directors coming into the UAE who can certainly help push the game on, and I think that's happening certainly at the national team, the UAE national team level, where they're really trying to push that and increase their sort of reputation and be more competitive at the national team level, and that should hopefully have a filtering system down to the grassroots level and down to our sort of private and professional academy structure.
Over the years, I've seen lots of talent from a coaching perspective going over there. I did not know that Alvaro Ragodo and Johan Cabaye were over there playing, but definitely seen lots of very talented coaches making their way to some high up positions, and I think that's obviously going to help having a lot of the very, very knowledgeable and experienced people there. I really wanted to go, because I think it was on a Thursday or Friday night, to see the qualifier between UAE and Lebanon, because it was only about 15 minutes from the hotel, but just couldn't get a ticket, unfortunately, because that kind of game is right up my street. World Cup qualifier between.
Yeah, I've been to the Asian Cup was hosted here in 2019, so we got to see a lot of the Asian Cup games. We took about 30 or 40 of our players to, I think it was an Australia game. I think it was Australia v Jordan potentially. But again, you even touched on the local professional league. I don't think it's as well supported and followed as it should be. There are some good teams and good players playing in the leagues. Not only the two you mentioned earlier, there's other former Premier League and La Liga players who sort of, yes, they may not be at the peak of their playing powers, but certainly are making the games and level fairly competitive. But in terms of mass spectators, the games will not be spectated as highly as, and that I think is that comes back down to the following that the Premier League and the other major European leagues have, is that there's been far more attraction to watching those games and staying in and watching them on TV rather than traveling to a local professional game on a Thursday evening or a Friday evening.
What do you think they can do to kind of drum up interest in that? Because I experienced the exact same thing Kuwait. I saw qualifiers for the Asian Cup between Kuwait and Thailand and Kuwait and Lebanon, and they qualified, and the stadium went crazy, but there was only a few thousand people there, and the rest of so I was talking to the kids, and they were saying, we're not interested, we don't care. And so, well, why? Well, one of the things they told me is because it only costs about £5 to get in, whereas when Bayern Munich were there a few years before, they're selling tickets for about 200 quid, and all the kids wanted to go. I get that, obviously, seeing Bayern Munich is way more attractive than Lebanon or Thailand, but I also do wonder if there's a prestige thing about it. Like, are they disgusted by their own country? Are they disgusted because they're not world champions?
Yeah,
how do you
I think
get more kids into it?
It comes back to that winning now and having to win, or having to be seen to win, or having to be part of winning and being seen to sort of whether you're following the UAE, or if you're from the UAE, I do think that plays a big part. And I certainly find that at the academy level, that the players are often jumping. We've got 4 or 5 players who jump between 6 or 7 different academies every year to follow where they think they can win, or where they perceive to be winning, rather than staying with what potentially would be a better development for their own individual ability, and a better environment for them to train in. But they're happy to jump to another program where they think, well, I may not play, I just sit on the bench, but as long as I'm winning, or as long as I'm perceived to be in a stronger team, then that will suit me. Where I think that goes across. I don't necessarily think that's a Dubai thing. I think that just in general, there's a transition from the hard work and work hard mentality to win now and not really work hard for it across the board in children. I don't think it's just in Dubai where we're becoming a bit soft. I think children in general are becoming a bit soft, and a bit then not dealing with defeat or losing or sort of circumstances that may put them out of their comfort zone very, very well. And I think that happens here a lot.
Try not to look at the past through rose-tinted glasses. I don't want to be that biased person who says, well, back in my day. But I am seeing that these trends are quite common across many different cultures, where kids are struggling to deal with setbacks. They're struggling to deal with any kind of negativity in ways that maybe, again, I was too young to see it, but I just don't think that it was happening like that when I was a kid. I'm sure everyone says that about the generation that come after them. But
I think it did happen. I just think you were sort of told it happens, and you either learn from it, you roll your sleeves up, you get back to training, and you work hard, and hopefully next time you learn from the setbacks, and you're stronger in that next circumstance, or you react differently, and you've got experience to build from, to make sure those setbacks become less frequent, and hopefully you learn from them and become, whether if that's in a sport, if that's in business, if that's in life, setbacks are going to happen, whether that's getting from a young age, whether that's getting not from the exam results you want, whether that's not being in the social circle that you want, whether that's setbacks from girlfriends. There's going to be many different things. And I just think Dubai particularly has and we talk about the Dubai bubble, it has a very soft environment for the children, where they're getting dropped off by drivers and nannies. And, I've got players who are 12 and 13, don't even know how to tie their own shoelaces, because they've never had to tie their own shoelace. And I think part of the lifestyle here can lead to that. And I think sometimes as coaches, we can try and instill a little bit of grit and hard work sometimes. But again, that could be the only hour or 2 hours a week where that happens. So we've got to be careful, that we've got to understand that the lifestyle, these children have a privileged life here. And although we have 2 or 3 hours contact time with them a week, we're also sometimes got to understand that the lifestyle these guys live is a different lifestyle than many live around the world.
Kids definitely cried when I was young, and I was one of them. I'm sure I must have had tantrums like every other child, but I remember the vast majority of people would say, come on mate, get over it. Whereas now I think you get an entire intervention where the adult's job is now on the line, when it's the kids just to be upset. Just let's show them how to deal with their emotions a bit better. Anyway, I need to get off for a session. It's been brilliant talking to you and catching up. I'm sure that you make loads of people jealous. I'm sure you've got plenty of friends back home who hate looking at your social media. That twat coaching in Dubai, John. I'm sure you get a lot of that, and there will probably be some of that from this. So thank you for coming on and giving us your time once again.
No problem at all.
After what you've done for me before. So I really, really appreciate that. Let's just finish on something positive then. If you can try and give us one last message of why someone should come over to Dubai to coach football.
I think the overall experience, the experience of the facilities you'll get to work in, the people you'll meet, the cultures you get to mix with every single day lead it to being a very transient and fast-paced and interesting place to live. And I'm certainly thankful for making the step into moving here 5 years ago. And I've certainly learned and grown both professionally and sort of in other ways that I probably may not have had the opportunities to do if it wasn't for Dubai. And I'll always be thankful for that. I think it's a fantastic place to live and a fantastic place to sort of to be based from and get many positive opportunities and experiences from.
Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you soon and keeping in touch on social media. I love following people's journeys and seeing what they get up to. So you've been generous with your time, with your insight, and really appreciate that. So have a wonderful rest of your evening and best of luck. We'll keep in contact.
Same to you. Enjoy your sessions tonight.
Huge thanks to Conor for coming on. If he likes the opportunity to coach all around the world, make sure you have an up-to-date subscription. For those of you who are members of Sports Session Planet, let us know so we can get you into the BFCN club for session sharing. Have a look at a couple of roles going on with our friends at Girls United. As always, if you or someone you know would like to be a guest, put us in contact. See you again soon.